Hi everyone, and welcome to this Map Mavin Methods. Now, I'm actually doing something a little different here, and I'm going to revisit a topic that we've talked about before here, both in Map Mavin Methods and in our FAQs. And I'm doing that because we've had quite a bit of change and good change in that realm, and I think it would be nice to kind of consolidate the various things that we've said over the past months and year in regards to open data and its role in the context of Map Maven, and just bring it all to one central point here. And probably the best place to start is to simply talk about what open data is, for those of you who don't know, which is totally fine if you don't. Open data, and this is not a formal definition by any means, but open data is essentially freely available data, public data, that has been released by what are generally large institutions. So city governments, state governments, big NGOs, sometimes corporations will release data into the wild, so to speak, but generally bigger groups. And that is because they are the ones who are most likely to create these massive data sets. Now, that's not to be confused with crowdsourced data, which are these sometimes equally huge data sets that are created by a lot of regular folks like you and I contributing over time and then consolidating that into one project. They can both be used in both crowdsourced data and open source data in a project, and that happens all the time, but I want to be clear on the distinction there. So a perfect example would be, for example, I made this map here that you'll see in some other videos of schools in Chicago, and you'll see all these points with all of the schools and their addresses and the zones that you would fall into if you were to want to go to one school were to be assigned to one school or another. The city of Chicago makes that public. But it can be a hassle going and finding where these data sources are. And with that in mind, and the reason I wanted to bring all of this stuff together in one comprehensive video, we've gone ahead and made our own data library. So to find that, you'll click Layers here, and you'll click Open Data Library. So we have all sorts of stuff in here, and we're constantly adding. We already have over 11,000 layers. But I'm going to look at, speaking of Chicago, let's see. I happen to know that this is in here. This is a great layer of rail networks in the state of Illinois. So I can click this little hamburger icon, and I will be given the options to view the layer, download it as a GeoJSON, or import it into my layers. And by import it into my layers, we mean directly into your account. So this is where the Open Data Portal, I think, is even more useful than a typical city data portal, in that you don't have to go to the various cities and whatnot and bring all of these different files into your project. They can just go right in there. And we'll go ahead and do that actually. But before, I'm going to click this little view button, and you'll see that it brings you to a more detailed description of that particular layer. You have those same download options and so forth. You get a little bit of information on the license, which is hyperlinked, so you can go to there, and the privacy policy. But again, you have a little bit of context as to what sort of data you're working with. So that's one option, and I'm actually going to go ahead and do that and click layer import started. We see that it's working, it's processing, and while it's processing, which usually takes a pretty short period of time, maybe 20 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, several minutes with some of the bigger stuff. While we're waiting for that, let's go ahead and look at Chicago's Open Data Portal, and you'll see how it's somewhat similarly structured. Now, I used this in another example that you'll see this month, and I encourage you to check that out. It's a case study on Chicago. But in this case, I'm just showing you what one city, in fact, we can even change here to, we'll go to Google, NYC Open Data. You'll see this isn't unique to Chicago. New York has this, many cities have this, but you're going to want to search for open data and then the name of the city. Another one that I love actually is Los Angeles County. So let's take a look at that one. This has a ton of stuff on it, and I've actually mentioned it in some other videos. But you get the general idea. You usually are brought to a portal. They're all fairly similar in how they're structured. They hopefully and usually will have icons denoting categories, and from there you can click and find further subcategories and really narrow down what you're looking for. You would then want to click on the particular data set that you're interested in and see if it comes in the formats that we accept on Map Maven. We accept a whole bunch of them, and if not, you could geotag them, which I will talk about in a later video. But for now, for something like this, you'll see all sorts of stuff. You'll see view types. That's what you want to really focus on, and click maps, and then it's going to be spatial data that Map Maven almost certainly is going to accept. For whatever reason, it's giving me no results. Oh, because there's none in health. So I unclick that, and you'll see there's all sorts of stuff in here. Free concerts in LA County. Yeah, and you would click that. You can then export it, and you'll see there's these different file formats. A lot of these are accepted. JSON, a GeoJSON would be accepted, as would a CSV in Map Maven. And you'll also see that you're able to actually preview it in here visually, so you can get a sense of what you're working with. That is what it's going to look like if you go out there into the wild west of the web on your own and look for data. So these are really your two options, and I wanted to bring that into one video so you have a sense of where all this stuff's coming from, because people are always asking, how are you making these maps? And I'd love to tell you that I am hand plotting all of the free concerts that took place in Los Angeles County, California in 2017, but I didn't. I technically could with Map Mavin, but I did not. I will find something like this and then import it, and then from there I will stylize it and make it really work for my particular project. And that's the key here, is to know where to get data, know what kind of data you might need, and know how to go about putting it in into Map Maven. Now, to wrap it up, if I were to download this, I would then just go through the regular upload process in Map Maven by going to the Layers tab and clicking Create Layer and dragging that layer or multiple layers, because we support multiple file uploads at once in bulk upload, and then from there I would stylize them. So that's pretty much the gist of that. And it looks like our railroads file actually completed. So before we wrap this up, let's go ahead and take a look at that. And you'll see, bam, it's in there. See all of these different railroads making their way into Chicago, not surprisingly, and some other towns. You see Springfield, then coming down to St. Louis, and so forth. So it's easy, painless. You don't need to do anything other than click import, and it's there. You can edit the description, stylize it, look at different features in the attribute table, and so forth. But the key here, from our perspective, is to make it as easy for you as possible. Thanks.